Hello, Crim 1 students, and this is going to be the second session related to the Career Development Center of Fresno State. And I'm really excited to be doing this session today in conjunction with our College of Social Sciences liaison for the Career Development Center, and that's Sheila Gallagher-Price. So Sheila, thank you so much for doing this presentation for us students. I know you have so much valuable information to share with them, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hughes. I'm excited about presenting to your class on what resumes are about, what they should be thinking about, what they should be incorporating into their resume, especially as they're going through their academic career. So let's get started. So I want to ask you all, what is the purpose of a resume? Well, it certainly is to apply for an internship, a job, a scholarship, graduating program, whatever it is you're going to need your resume for. But it's also a quick, good first impression that employers are going to decide whether they're going to interview you or not. And remember, the ultimate purpose here is to get an interview. So I know, having worked with employers for the last 4 years on campus, I asked them, how long does it take for them to review a resume? Dr. Hughes, any idea how long you think it takes them to review a resume?
So the actual time they spend looking at the resume?
Right.
I'm going to guess 30 seconds.
Oh, good. It takes about between 10 and 50 seconds for them to decide whether they're going to submit you for an interview or not. And just keep in mind that you're competing with hundreds of other people. So you're going to want your resume to stand out against the others. And that's why it's so critical that your resume make that first good impression.
That's a really important point, because you think someone's going to read every single detail and you realize you have to be so sharp and concise to get their attention.
Okay. Exactly. The elements that you should include in that resume is the contact information. Certainly, you want to include that to know where or how the employer can reach out to you. Now, it should include an objective, but let me just say this. An objective is not a requirement on a resume, especially if you're short on space. If you're not, I would say include an objective, and the title could be profile, it could be summary, it could be objective. But when I talk to employers and I bring employers on campus to do resume workshops, I'll ask them, do you care whether a resume has an objective or not? And I get about 50-50. Some employers read them. Some employers don't even care that it has an objective. They're too busy looking and skimming your resume to see your education, your qualifications, your experience when they're looking at your resume.
So Sheila, I have a question, because you said if you have space, you could put in an objective.
Correct.
So is there a recommendation for how long this resume should be? I mean, we now know that people don't spend much time reading it. So I assume it shouldn't be 5 pages.
Oh, well, as a baccalaureate student, it should be kept to a page minimum, page maximum. We say this because employers know that as an undergrad degree, you'll have experience, but it's going to be relevant to the job you're applying. And we'll talk about that later. The resume should be tailored to the job you're applying to, not just everything that you've done in your whole academic career. They think that a page is sufficient to get that snapshot of you as the individual applying for the job. So that's a good question. Try to keep it to a page summary if possible, unless you have extensive activities, work experience, relevant work experience to the job you're applying to. So after your skills and qualification, you're going to list your education, and we'll go over how the formatting should be on that, as well as your experience, both paid and unpaid. I see a lot of students, and when I review their resume, they'll leave a lot of relevant experience off the resume because they think it's not important. Trust me, everything, be it volunteer, community involvement, unpaid internship, paid internships, or work experience is all relevant depending on the job you're applying. And then of course your volunteer community involvement, your honors or awards, your leadership activities that you're going to be involved in as you go along your academic career. Now I want to point out the career success guide that our office does. It's going to look like this. That's the booklet. Now, it can be downloaded as a PDF off of our homepage of our website. And here's the website address, www.fresnostate.edu/careers. This career success guide is on the homepage about middle to the lower half of our homepage. I've highlighted some pages in this career success guide, which is full of helpful information as you go along your Crim 1 class. I'm sure Dr. Hughes is going to have you do other things involving our office. And it's just something that I would recommend highly that you download as a freshman or a new transfer coming into Fresno State. Because at some point in your academic career, you're going to be asked to do a cover letter, mock interviewing to prepare you for an interview, or as I said, the template resume that is in this booklet as well. And the template page, the template resume is on page 21. And we actually have a criminology template. You don't have to use it. We recommend it, which can be found on page 26 of this career success guide.
So Sheila, can I ask you a question about that? So is there something particular to jobs, say in the criminal justice field, that requires a specific type of resume, or how does it differ from other templates that you provide?
Good question. You know, it doesn't, and I have the template included, and later on we'll see. There's just projects or things that may be required in the field of criminology that we think are important to list, that a lot of students, having spoken with them, leave off. And I'm not sure that they don't see the relevance of it. So we did a template to make you think about your projects, your class, coursework, things like that, your volunteer work that a lot of you students will be doing in the law enforcement field, let's say, or corrections field or victimology, that we recommend you include, and we show you how to include that on the resume for a criminology.
Really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the contact information, and I can't stress enough, how you format this is very important to the employer. I have talked to students that have the same font of their name with all the font of their email, phone number, LinkedIn account, and it doesn't stand out. So if you have to hunt for your name, and I've dummied a name, doctored a name, Carmen, criminologist. If you can't see the name on the resume, I will tell you the employer will flip it over and go to the next one. So if they have to hunt and try to find things, they're gonna not pursue the interview. So here are 3 different types of ways to list your name on your resume. The first one is how we recommend that you list it, with your name in a larger font. Of course, your city and state. You do not notice how there is no address there. We do this because if you're going to list this on social media, like your LinkedIn account, we don't recommend that you advertise your home address on social media. So you can list it by the city and state, and that's sufficient. It's got your contact phone number, and then of course your email address. You don't have to say my cell or email. It's obvious that that's your phone number and your email address. I also want to strongly urge you to create a LinkedIn account. Most students today, we find, don't have a LinkedIn account till they're either graduated or they're getting ready to graduate. And it's a great networking tool to reach out to people already in the industry or field that you can connect with, and even just talk about what they like about their job, what they don't like about their job. Would you be interested in doing something in that field? And they're more than willing to talk to you about that. We find we get a lot of Fresno State alumni to participate in our workshops by using LinkedIn. So it's a great way.
That's great advice to the students. Just a follow-up question. You mentioned obviously not wanting to put a home address, for example, on a resume that's then going out on social media. What about the phone number? Is it important to put a phone number in for potential employers?
I find that the best way to get in contact with you is either by your phone number or your email address, one or the other. Just make sure that if you do give your phone number out, that you answer the phone. If it goes to voicemail, and you're going to see a phone number maybe that you can't identify it, you think it's spam or something, and it goes straight to voicemail. We've had employers say, you gave me a phone number, I reached out to offer you an interview and you didn't pick up. So we've moved on to the next candidate. If you do list your phone number, make sure that you answer the phone or you reply, listen to your voicemail, make sure your voicemail box is empty. If it's full and they can't leave a phone number, you've missed out on an opportunity to have an interview with that company you've been dying to work for. So either way, make sure you do answer if it's phone number or email address, if you are going to put that information out there. The next set is the typical email address, name listed on the resume. And this is a good way to list it if you need to take up space. Were you going to ask me?
I have a question sort of about emails. Sure. Sometimes we might create emails that have kind of a jokey nickname or something like that. Should students create a more professional email address?
Good question. I've gotten a lot of emails over my time that were, I think, sexy Sheila, let's say, or I've seen one that said Carmen 69, blah, blah, blah. It is not something that you probably thought about when you created your email at Fresno State or your Gmail account or whatever email account you want to use. But I want to encourage you to change that email address if you haven't done so already, and use an appropriate name, knowing that down the road, you're going to be pursuing a professional career and you want that email name to be appropriate for your employers.
And I do understand that if a student desperately needs to change their Fresno State email address, it is maybe possible to do that. If any student is in that situation, please contact me and we'll try and figure that out.
Correct. I would highly, strongly urge you to change it if it's not appropriate or you thought it was cutesy or funny at the time, to make it more professional. Even your LinkedIn account, make sure that that's professional. And while we're on that subject, I have talked to employers. It's funny, when they're interviewing you, they will actually go on social media and they will check out your Facebook account, your Instagram account, your LinkedIn account to see if there's anything inappropriate or pictures or comments or anything when they are investigating you. And I say investigating because I've had companies actually research and denied someone an interview, or they have interviewed and then they researched about the prospective employee, and because of inappropriate pictures posted, they decided not to hire them. So it can be a hindrance to you getting a job. So think about what you're posting out there in social media. And certainly if there is something that is inappropriate, remove it. And just, it's probably better that it's not on social media. And then the last one is, again, the same reiteration as the first two, just a different way to list it. It has your city and state, your email address, your phone number, and then your LinkedIn account. So there's 3 options here on how to list it on your resume. Now, we talked about objective summary profile earlier. I mentioned it, whether employers like it or not. I would certainly list an objective. It's perfectly okay to not have one or to have one. Just when you do create an objective, make sure it's clear, concise, and shows a purpose. I get a lot of students that say things like, I'm pursuing a job in, let's say, the criminology field to gain more experience. Employers want to see what you can offer them, not what they can offer you. So when you do an objective statement, just make sure it's what you can offer them to demonstrate my knowledge, expertise in this field. I'm pursuing a career in the corrections field or the law enforcement field or whatever field you're pursuing. And it can be a combination of the position you want, be it internship or full-time, a functional area in which you want to work, whatever field, like I said earlier, victimology, corrections, law enforcement, and the industry that you're wanting to pursue. And then skills you wish to apply, my leadership skills, my critical thinking skills, my problem solving skills. Make sure you list those skills that you've gained while in the academic field. And I'm going to show you in the next slide what the top 8 skills are that employers are looking for that we call career readiness skills. And then make sure and include all of this in your resume and certainly your cover letter.
Just one thing, if I could add,
Sure.
I have seen resumes for job applications where the objective has nothing to do with the actual job that they've applied for. So I'm sure you recommend that you make sure that that objective is definitely in line with the position.
You know, it's funny you bring that up, Dr. Hughes. I am posting a position in our office right now, and someone applied, and the objective statement was for an HR position that had nothing to do with the position in our office. So it was clearly apparent to me the student had a template resume and never bothered to change it or adapt it to the job she was applying to. That's a no-no. We want to make sure that the resume is tailored to the job. And so when we talk about the skills, here are the top 8 skills that employers look for that it is so critical that you gain while pursuing your academic career. These skills, you'll notice, are not necessarily technical skills that can be found, by the way, in the Career Readiness Guide. These top 8 skills are a collaborative of employers nationwide that they've agreed. These are the top 8 they're looking for. And of these top 8, the top 3 consistently are problem solving, communication skills, and leadership skills. And then 4th could be professionalism, it could be technology skills, any of those. But you are demonstrating this every day, either in the classroom, in your volunteer, in your organization, or in your work. And you're not even realizing you're doing it, nor are you articulating it in the resume. And I think it's important that you cover these skills because you're doing them every day and don't even realize it. And that is the oral written communication, the collaborative team that you're a part of when you're working or volunteering or doing a group project in the classroom, the digital technology you're using every day, and then of course your professionalism, your work ethic, your leadership skills, and this global intercultural fluency. You're dealing with a diverse population of students at Fresno State, one of the most diverse universities nationwide. It's important that you state this in your resume when you're talking about the job you're doing. If it's a on-campus student employment job, or if it's part of a team project you're working on, make sure that you mention that on the resume, because it's important that employers get a clear picture of just exactly what you do every day. And then of course, the critical thinking, problem solving, and then the career management. That is your goals for yourself that you've set, that you are working towards. So here is some examples of objective statements that I seen, that I wrote out, that I think would be a good visual for you all. So you want to obtain a criminology internship. It's perfect for the summer of whatever year you're working. Make sure you include the year. Or you're seeking a full-time career position in whatever field you're pursuing. I used victimology here. Or an internship where you can apply your technical skills and your career readiness skills or transferable skills that we just mentioned in the slide before in the areas of corrections. And then I go on to say to apply my leadership, analytical, and communication skills in the field of law enforcement. Those 3 skills that I just mentioned were in that slide just before this one. Those were the top 8 that I showed you. And they're called career readiness skills, or the buzzword today is portable skills or transferable skills, soft skills, whatever you want to call them. But it's skills you can take with you in any job that employers don't need to train you on. You've already gotten them and developed them. And then, of course, to obtain an entry-level career position in forensics. These are all objective statements.
This is really helpful to see. I've often had some confusion about what should be in an objective statement, but that gives really a clear guidance.
Right? It's different ways to state what it is you're looking for. And just so you know, we are recording this workshop today, and it'll be available. I'll send it to Dr. Hughes and she can share it with you all so that you have it and can refer to these slides as needed. Now here's the skills and qualifications. If you were applying for an entry-level position, and I just made one up as a crisis response team member with the Marjorie Mason Center that involves working collaboratively within a team, communicating to clients in weekend hours, simply say 2 years of voluntary relative experience, may not be exactly in the field that you're applying to, but it's related to. So you can list it by saying 2 years of volunteer service at the Rape Counseling Services of Fresno. What you did, you answered the crisis hotline and you worked on the weekends. So it's very clear, concise, and relevant to the job you're applying. And here's some other experiences that you think may not be what they're looking for, but I'll tell you, if you've done 3 years of participation in Kids Day at Valley Children's, not only are you working collaboratively with others, but you're also participating in a very critical fundraising event at Fresno State that raises money for Valley Children's. So it's not exactly the Marjorie Mason Center, but it's all related to exercising those skills we talked about earlier. And then, of course, able to work independently as well as as a team member. They're looking for collaborative people who work collaboratively with others. So go ahead and state that you've done that in your volunteer work, or you've done that in the classroom, or you've done that in your work experience. And then also mention that you have good written and verbal communication skills. I will tell you that employers are always looking in almost every application or job announcement I see, that's what they'll ask: good written and verbal communication skills. Those will come out in your interview, Dr. Hughes. They will start asking you questions, and they're going to find out relatively quickly whether you can articulate whatever it is they're asking you. So we do in our office offer mock interviewing, practice interviewing that will practice those oral and written communication skills.
How do students sign up for that?
You know, they can reach out to our office, and at the end of this presentation, this workshop, I'll have my email address listed. They can email me, and I'd be more than happy to meet with them on an individual basis, and we can do
practicing those interview skills is crucial. It makes such a difference.
It's critical. I hear from employers more and more that students cannot answer behavioral-based questions, and that's a whole nother workshop. But behavioral-based questions are things that you were given a task and what you did to get the results that you got. And it's connecting the dot for the employer so that they have a full picture of what exactly you did. And then demonstrated ability to work well under pressure. When you're applying for a crisis team where there's a hotline and you've got to answer the phones and you've got somebody upset on the other end, it's important that you articulate that you've done that before in your rape counseling services experience, or if you haven't, go volunteer and gain that experience. So when you apply for the job, you can say you've done that.
And then in terms of the interview, obviously you would want to be prepared to answer a question about giving an example of a time when you had to act under pressure and how you handled the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're going to ask you, undoubtedly, because that's what they're looking for in this position, certainly. So be prepared to answer that. If you're going to state it on your resume, you better have done it, because they're going to ask you about it in the interview. And I've had students lie on their resume or embellish what they said they did based on what the position was looking for. And when they got to the interview, the employer could tell that they were lying. And of course, they didn't go any further with the company. So it's important to only list those things you've actually done. If you haven't done them, go out and volunteer and gain those experience, or try to work in that field to gain those experiences for sure. Now we go to the education section of the resume. And I'm, by the way, showing these in the order that they should appear on the resume. And at the end, I'll go over the final product so you'll see it. And of course, again, in the Career Success Guide is the template on how this should be laid out. When we talk about education, I can tell you over and over and over again, the resumes that I look at, I either have to hunt for what degree they're pursuing at Fresno State, or it's not listed at all. It'll say you're attending Fresno State, but there's no degree listed, nor is there an expected graduation term. If an employer has to hunt for this information, they don't know, and they're not going to assume. They're just going to flip it over and go to the next resume. So when you do list your education, only list those institutions that you received or will receive a degree. So if you went to a community college, certainly list that. After you list Fresno State at the institution that you're pursuing a degree in. You're going to type the degree, the major, the minor, and you're going to list your future graduation date. I can't tell you how many students I see that don't know what the degree is. For example, Bachelor of Arts in Victimology. That is not the degree you're pursuing. Your degree is a Bachelor of Science in the field of criminology, and the option that you've chosen, law enforcement, corrections, victimology, whatever your option is, should be listed after you list the field. So your field is criminology, and then comma, the option.
And then for students who are in forensic behavioral sciences, they would just have BS, and then forensic behavioral sciences.
Correct. And I have to tell you, I used to do graduation of students. I worked in the evaluations office for years, and there's multiple ways I've seen them listed. And I forget all the new ones like behavioral forensics that are coming up that weren't there when I was there. So correct. It's a Bachelor of Science degree that does not have an option in that field, correct. And then you're going to list your AA, your AS, and then I put a question mark by the high school diploma. I get lots of resumes where they're graduating from college and they've listed their high school diploma. You do not need your high school diploma listed on your resume at the time of graduation from your four-year institution. By then, you will have collected enough experience, you've gained enough experience or volunteer work or organizations that you've joined or your activities that you won't need it. There's a mixed feeling on whether you should list anything from your high school on your resume, even if you're graduating from a four-year institution. If you were part of an organization, let's say CFA or CSF, I believe it is a lifetime achievement for having 4.0 GPA, that's important to list, and I think should be listed down in awards or activities towards the end of the resume, but you don't need to list the high school because you received that award or activity while in high school. Some people feel you need to list the high school if you're going to list the activity or award. I personally don't think you need to. So it's a personal opinion. especially if you don't have room on your resume by the time you graduated from college, I would leave it off. Make sure that you list your expected graduation, the month and the year, not when you started at Fresno State. So let's say you started this fall and you're going to say August of 2020 to present. We know you're at Fresno State. What the employer wants to know is when you expect to graduate. So it's critical that you list the expected year and month you plan on graduating so they know how much longer you have. And then if the grade point average is a 3.0 or above, I would certainly list that on the resume. It's not important that you have a 3.0 or above, but I would certainly urge you to do the best you can do in your field that you want to pursue a professional career in, just because you're competing with other students and because it looks great that you've gotten a high achievement in your field, your major field. You'll, of course, fill that information with other things, your activities, your experience, your volunteerism, your internship, and all of that. But if you have it, make sure you list it. And then educational honors, if applicable. Dean's list. You have a question?
Yes, so if someone is a freshman in college looking for an internship for next summer, because they're earlier on in their college career, should they list then their high school diploma? And if they had honors in high school, put that on their resume?
Absolutely. If you are a freshman, it's okay to list your high school diploma and your honors, certainly. I would list it even if you're a senior, because that's a huge achievement that you've earned while in high school. I would recommend listing it. By the time your sophomore year rolls around, I wouldn't list the high school at all unless you do have honors, like you mentioned, because by then you've acquired other skills and experience under your belt to not have to list your high school at all. But as a freshman, I realize, and employers realize, that you may not have the experience, and certainly list it on your resume. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. So here's some examples of how you should list that on your resume. Bachelor of Science, as I mentioned earlier, criminology, comma, with the option. Corrections, your expected graduation date is May 20 of 23 or 24, whichever. And then, of course, if you've acquired any certificates along the way, I know alcohol and drug certificate is offered at Fresno State, make sure you list that. As well as your GPA, it's 3.0 or higher, and certainly in this case, it's 3.65. So make sure you list that. And the president's list, where you had a 4.0 and how many semesters you did acquire. That 4.0 president's list, and then the dean's list with a 3.5 or higher. And then, of course, the city college that you attended, what degree, if you received any. If you didn't, you can leave that off. If it's just a general education that you were getting out of the way at city college, just list the city college and the year that you graduated or left city college. If it's honors, make sure you include those as well. And then here's some other ways to list it down below. I do want to say, Dr. Hughes, that I see a lot of students list Fresno State. The official name of our university is California State University, Fresno. You want to make sure that you list it appropriately on your resume. And then I've seen where students after the full name will put in parentheses Fresno State and then mention it as Fresno State throughout the body. That's perfectly okay. Just make sure you list the full official title of Fresno State when you list it on your resume.
And that's what will be on your transcript. That's what will be on your diploma. So that is very important.
Absolutely. The next section you're going to want to list, and I see a lot of students forget about this, you want to list your coursework that is relevant to the job you're applying, especially if you've taken Crim 180 or 108. I think it's still either or. Dr. Hughes, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, the directed policing Crim 108 can substitute for the internship Crim 180I.
I think it's important. I just met with a student yesterday who did not list this at all. It's so critical that you list relevant coursework or projects or service related to the job you're applying. Most of you who are in the law enforcement field are going to apply to be a law enforcement person, be it city police or be it county sheriffs or be it highway patrol. Make sure you list this relevant coursework so they know that not only did you take or gain this experience, but you're also now what the end result was, a reserve deputy sheriff if you're going into the sheriff department.
What about courses like, for instance, if you're in the law enforcement option, you're taking classes like Crim 110, Policing in America, is that something that would be relevant to put down, or would it be assumed you're a law enforcement option student that you are taking those kinds of courses?
You know, I would not assume anything. I would list it. I think the more they know about you as the individual and what background you have, the clearer the picture they have on why they want to hire you. That's my philosophy. And that's what I tell any student that I'm working with. This is your 10 to 50-second snapshot of you. You want it all on the page. Don't leave anything to guess or question. Tell them about you and what you've gained in the classroom or in the field or volunteer or internship anywhere.
So if someone wants to go into, say, probation, they could put down relevant coursework, community-based corrections, which obviously is based on probation and parole.
Absolutely.
And you know, if you've already done your internship, that is a crucial experience that you want to put down in this.
And those of you who are graduating or have graduated this last semester during this COVID virus epidemic that we're in, I feel for you. Still list it, even if you didn't get to do it, and just say COVID virus interrupted or delayed, or that way it shows the employer you went through all the process of being accepted into this internship, even if you didn't get to do it. You were selected to do this internship, and the employer needs to know that. You would still be doing it if it weren't for this coronavirus interruption.
Good advice.
I think it's important that students, you know that. Going back to your experience, work, volunteer, leadership, any experience that you're gaining while pursuing your undergrad degree, make sure you list it, even if you think it's not relevant to the job you're applying. I'll give you an example. The young lady I met with yesterday graduated last semester. She had no experience on her resume, literally none. I said, what have you been doing since you graduated in December? And she goes, well, actually, I was caring for my mother. She had an illness. Now she's at a point where I can go work or look for work in the field that I want to work in. And I said, you need to give that picture to the employer. It wasn't that you just didn't do anything. You were actually caring for somebody. And what did that care involve? You were dedicating your life to caring for somebody in your family. It's important that you paint that picture to the employer so they know you were still doing something during that time that you weren't working. So even though you think it's not related, it's all relatable, and it paints a picture of what exactly you were doing with your life. The other thing that she had left off was her Crim 180 internship experience because it was COVID interrupted. I said, you need to list that on there, even if you didn't get to do it, because you went through the process of being selected and hired to do that internship. And it's something that you need to do. If you have other work experience, which she did, but didn't think it was related, talk about those transferable skills, those career readiness skills we mentioned earlier. Problem solving, critical thinking, able to work collaboratively with others or independently as needed. Any of those experiences that are transferable, that are in that career success guide, you want to mention those because those are all skills employers are looking for. Oral and written communication skills, if you had to deal with the public in any way, list it. So those are all relatable skills that you want to mention on your resume. I'm hoping that as you are pursuing your undergraduate degree, you are acquiring skills and you get out of it what you put into it. So make sure you work. Make sure that if you can't work, you volunteer or you join clubs or organizations, any of those things while you're pursuing an undergrad degree, because those are going to what set you apart from the rest of the pack. So make sure that you're building experiences as you go through your undergrad degree.
So for example, if a student becomes a member of one of our student organizations like POA, that's something that they should put down on their resume. And if they take on a leadership position within that organization, they should absolutely put that as well.
Absolutely. And in fact, I've inserted that in the slides that we're going to see upcoming. Yes. If you've held a position, if you were a member of, if you volunteered, how many hours did you volunteer? We're talking about all of that is relatable experience, relevant experience that paints a picture for the employer. So the formatting you're going to use when you're talking, when you're listing this on your resume is reverse chronological order, like the education section we mentioned. Your most recent degree that you're pursuing is at Fresno State, so that's going to be first. Underneath that's going to be your community college experience or your high school experience, secondary or third. Make sure that you're consistent with formatting. If you're going to use the month and the year, either by writing out the month or using the numerical number for that month, make sure you do it throughout the body of the resume. It's easy on the eyes, and it makes it easy for the employer to see. If they have to switch gears and think differently, they're not going to spend any time doing that. They're going to move on. Use action verbs in this career success guide that I keep referring to on page, I believe it's 21. I want to make sure. 19 and 20, they're power verbs that we suggest that you incorporate into your resume. They're broken into skill types like communication skills, leadership skills, what management skills, whatever skills that you have. They're broken into those categories. Make sure you refer to that when you're writing up your resume. When you come to see me with your resume, I'm going to ask you if you looked at the career success guide. Let's look at it together and let's incorporate those things into it. You're going to list your most current position first in the present tense formatting, and anything after that that is in the past, make sure you list it in past tense. I see a lot of students that will go back and forth, present, past, present, past, present. You either are or you aren't doing it currently. If you're not doing it currently, you're going to list it in past tense, and you're going to list the month and the year you did it. Lots of times students will list just the year because they did it that year. But I'm going to say, did you do it for one day? Did you do it for 1 week? Did you do it for 1 month? You need to be consistent that you list the month and the year, even if it was only for 1 month. July, 2020. It's okay to list just a month, but be consistent and list it so that the employer has a clear picture of how long you did it. And then bullet points whenever possible, not paragraphs on your resume. And we'll go over how to do those. And then quantify whenever possible. I get lots of times students will say, I was a shift crew lead at, let's say, Chevy's. And I'll ask, really, how many did you oversee and did you train them? If you train them, how many did you train? It's important that employers see that you've done some training or some leadership skills with a number of people. And it paints a picture for them that they go, wow, she's managed 25 people over her lifespan at Chevy's. That's outstanding work. Training, overseeing, whatever it is you did with that group. So here's some examples. If you worked at the Marjorie Mason Center, make sure you list what your title was, Crisis Response Team Intern. Of course, the year and the month that you did it, if it's to present or current, either way, make sure you list it that way. And then if you worked on campus, let's say as a student assistant in the Health and Wellness Center, You can list it that way as well. These are just some examples of how you want to show it. Recruiting co-chair with Lambda Alpha Epsilon Phi Omega Alpha chapter. List it like that. It's important that you list, as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Hughes, if you held a position. So composing your experiences, this is where students get tripped up the most, and I end up just asking questions as if I certainly don't know what you did. And if I don't see it on there, I'm going to ask lots of questions to draw it out of you to put it on your resume, because the employers want a clear, concise picture of what you did. So what were my duties? I always say, start out writing a paragraph, write everything you did, even if it's incidental and you think that you were just running a cash register, you were actually running a point of service place where you were engaging with the community or clients or customers. It's all part of the picture. You were communicating with them. You were resolving their issue or what they were trying to do, and that is pay for their meal or pay for their merchandise or whatever it is, but you were engaging with them. So write all of that out. And then from that paragraph, you're going to pick up key sentences and create bullet points from them. That includes an action verb of the specific thing you were doing. Designed, created, initiated, edited, monitored. These are just many examples of what you were doing in that job. So what I did was I took a paragraph here, I've seen it on a resume before, and it was, my duties included being responsible for the weekly and monthly reports that I gave to my boss that tracked our account activity. I worked with databases, spreadsheets to keep track of the vendor accounts. I answered the phones and made sure the vendors knew what was happening with their accounts. Okay, it gives me kind of an idea what you did, but it's a little lengthy. So let's see. The after. I've broken those key points into bullet points. Prepared weekly and monthly reports tracking account activity, and submitted the reports to the vice president, because we want to know who you kept track for. So we have a picture of what you did and who you oversaw and who you were communicating your information to. You maintained 379 vendor accounts. Wow, that's a lot, using an Excel spreadsheet. Gives a visual to the employer how many you managed and what you were using to manage those. And then you kept 4,500 customer accounts updated and accurate. That's a lot. I would not have known that in the previous, let me get back to that screen. None of this paragraph states how many you oversaw or what you were doing, other than you were doing it. It's important to paint that picture.
And this revised slide here, it's just so much more concise, it's so much more precise, and as we said earlier, the person reading the resume is not going to spend much time on it. So if they can look at this and get a quick account of what you've done, it's going to look impressive.
Exactly. And then all of that additional information comes out in the interview. So I see you kept 4,500 customer accounts. Tell me more about that. I'd like to know how you kept count. 4,500, that's a lot. So when you compose your experiences, write the accomplishment statement by using the power verb, again, in the career success guide, how you completed the action and what your results or outcomes were. And that can be found, those verbs can be found on page 21 of the career success guide. So I did some examples here that make it clear, concise, and have that. Participated in mock trial competitions, playing various roles that resulted in winning multiple national awards. You participated in it, you held various roles, and you won national awards from doing that. Wow, there it is, bing, bang, boom. Or you were a College of Social Sciences ambassador that mentored how many? 55 new criminology students by showing them around campus and connecting them with the COS as academic advisors. So your role there was you oversaw and you mentored 55 new students coming in, and what you did by connecting them with various campus departments and advisors. That's awesome. We talked about volunteer and community service. I cannot stress this enough. Please, 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 in your academic career while you're pursuing your degree, make sure that you gain as much experience as you can to put on a resume, because that's what's going to set you apart from the others. So volunteer whenever possible, join an organization such as Lambda Alpha Epsilon, become a member. You don't have to hold a position on the board, but it certainly helps if you do. And the experience that you're gaining even in the classroom by doing projects or your work experience is certainly valuable. Make sure you list your honors and awards, dean's list, president's list. You were a student employee of the month. You were a member of the mock trial program, National Criminology Honor Society. You were an Eagle Scout in high school. Remember earlier I mentioned if you achieved awards or honors while in high school, even if you're graduating from college, make sure you list it. It's a big deal. FFA, 4-H, huge deal. Shows leadership skills. They want to know more about what you gained in those honors or awards. So certainly toot your own horn and gain the experience. And then leadership activities, coach, mock trial, team for a high school. You are an ambassador, as I mentioned earlier, for the College of Social Sciences. You were a member how many years? And if you held an office, how many years? And what the organization in the chapter was you held that office and were a member of. And then ASB officer. These are just some examples and how you're going to list them. And then what employers are seeking. They're wanting related project work internship experience. Specific major and degree, they want to see it. Descriptions that convey your skills and qualifications. As I mentioned earlier, they want to see those transferable skills that you've gained while going to school. What your accomplishments were and where you may have made an impact on somebody else's life. And then a clear objective. If you are going to list an objective on your resume, make sure it's clear, concise, and what it is you can offer them, not what they can offer you. Extracurricular involvement. GPA is excellent. If you have a 3.0 or higher, it shows that you were dedicated and serious about your work while going to college. Be sure and list it if it's 3.0 or higher. And here is the finished product that I talked about. This is the template that is in the Career Success Guide that is tailored for a criminology major. When you asked me earlier, is it any different? Not necessarily, but it gives you areas that you can acquire skills that you are acquiring while going to school. And those certificates, I want to encourage you to gain as many as you can in your department, within your department. It will only make you more marketable when you're pursuing the degree. It's all fitting on one page. She's got everything listed, including her LinkedIn account. We do offer videos on how to create a LinkedIn account. If you haven't already done so, you can find those videos on our website with the YouTube icon on the upper left of our homepage. Click on that, and every webinar, video, workshop that we've done in our office since we've gone COVID is listed there on our website. Everything is clear, concise, and talks about each of the qualifications. I do want to mention, lots of times students will leave off that they're bilingual. If you are bilingual, or for example, the student I had yesterday, she was trilingual and left it off her resume. I said, wow, do you know how critical that might be in the job that you're applying to? Because they may need you to translate for a customer or a suspect or somebody that they've arrested or are working with and they couldn't communicate with them. You have those skills. The employer needs to know you have those skills. So certainly list that on your qualifications and list it high up to where that is listed first.
This
If you,
overall resume is just so kind of appealing and easy on the eye. And you can imagine if you are an employer who's looking through hundreds of resumes, you would get to this one and you would focus on it and you would read it and you would see the key points.
and I tell you over and over and over again, when I deal with employers, if they have to hunt for things, they're not going to read it. They're going to flip it over and move to the next applicant. I will tell you, employers have gotten so sophisticated today that they can actually take your resume, feed it through a machine, and if the keywords that they're looking for do not appear on your resume, it will spit it out and they'll move on to the next resume. So take notice, your resume should be tailored to the job you're applying. If those keywords, and I always tell students, literally side by side, have the job the job announcement and your resume, and pick out those keywords that they've actually used in the job announcement and insert it in your resume. And of course, be able to demonstrate that you can do it. We don't want to lie on a resume, but if you've done it, make sure you use those keywords so that if they do feed it through a reader, it'll pick up those words and you'll go to the yes pile. So I have a slide here and I'm going to move. I don't know if you can see it, but let me move these boxes out of the way. Whoops. It's hard when you have a little tiny screen here. I always tell students, proofread your resume and have someone else look at it. You want to make sure there are no errors on that resume, typos or anything like that, because it says a lot about whether you took the time when you did your resume to pay attention to detail. If you say you have excellent written communication skills and you have a typo, I'd say it's a reflection or it's not a reflection of your abilities. Make sure that you have somebody look it over. Write about your accomplishments and not just about your job, not the job description. Write about what you've accomplished while pursuing your undergrad degree. And then make sure the formatting, as I showed you in the slide previously, it's easy on the eye. It's easy to read. It flows nicely. Everything is consistent. And then make sure that when you do print out a resume, it's on quality paper, not this flimsy, thin paper that we use every day in the reader, but use some, not a thick page, but has some substance to it. Now I play a game with students and somewhere on this slide is a typo. Dr. Hughes, can you find it?
Keep clam and proofread.
You know, it's funny. Clam will not come up as a misspelling because it is a word.
Never heard of it before.
The clam that you eat, right?
I mean,
right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So this would not have shown up on a misspelling if you do your spell check. So when you have somebody read it or you read it, make sure it makes sense. Clam, keep clam. No, we want to keep calm and proofread. So make sure that when you're reading it, it makes sense to you. The word may be spelled correctly, but it's not used grammatically correct. So make sure that you proofread it and bounce it off of somebody. Now here's our contact information for the Career Development Center. Here's our office hours. We're open 8 to 5, even virtually. We have somebody there answering the phones. We actually have a virtual career cafe that is open Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, that is run by career peer mentors that I oversee. Unfortunately, we're down to one career peer mentor during this COVID virus. We're in the process of interviewing for a second. The one that we had left for a different position, he graduated. So we're in the process of trying to fill another slot. So we have someone working Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then the staff is filling in Tuesday, Thursdays by answering your questions and dropping in. If you want to reach me specifically to go over your resume or to talk about what the Career Development Center can offer you or what we offer, I've listed my email address. Please, please, please reach out to me. Any question is an important question, And I feel that that I need to connect with you and help you along to pursue your career. That anything I can do to answer or assist you with regarding a resume or interviewing or a cover letter or whatever else comes up career-wise, feel free to reach out to me with the email address listed.
So if a student has a question about whether they've put their resume together in a good way, they can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
On that. That's great.
I am your career liaison for the College of Social Sciences, and I'd love to meet with you.
And you mentioned earlier having worked with a student who had recently graduated. So you do also provide assistance to students who have since left Fresno State.
We do. We cater to 25,000 students on campus. Obviously, we're here to support the whole undergrad campus. The further along you get after graduation, we'll refer you to other organizations and things, but you can always, even as an alumni, use our job board, use our online services. This student is a new semester out of graduation. We certainly meet with you, but we'll also show you resources on our website you can use as well.
That's really helpful. So I just want to ask you, because you obviously have all this amazing expertise, you're a professional career guidance counselor. What do you wish that you had known when you were in college?
Wow. You know, I went to community college first and I transferred to Fresno State. I am a Fresno State alum, and there was no one there to show me the way. And so the advice I would give to any student coming in is you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. And you are your best advocate. I tell every student that comes to me that we meet regarding anything career related, you are your best advocate and your only advocate. So make sure that you connect early with your academic advisor, with the professors in your college, with the Career Development Center. And any one of those three can direct you to where you need to go if you have other questions or issues regarding your course journey, so to speak, as you are pursuing your undergrad degree. Connect with somebody and feel as though you can go to them and ask them anything, even if it's not career related. If you came to me, I worked on campus 33 years. So if I don't know the answer, I will seek it out with you, but I have a pretty good idea who I could refer you to, having been on campus for so long. But I will say this, be your own advocate. Make sure you put into it what you need to get that degree or to get that job after you graduate. Let's face it, you're here to get a degree, to get a good paying job. And you're competing with hundreds, if not thousands of people for the same position. So you need to do things that set you apart from the pack. And that is by the experiences you are gaining while pursuing your undergrad degree.
Well, that's excellent advice. And this has just been such a helpful presentation. And I really appreciate all the time you've put into being here for our students so that they can prosper both at Fresno State and in their careers after graduation. So I can't thank you enough for all that you've done to help today. So thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you again for allowing me to come in and talk to your students.
Thank you.